Yes, I think a lot about our frontline workers in the medical field these days. I think many of us are thinking about them. At least I hope. What they must be going through right now, day in and day out, in the face of unbelievable stress, in the face of illness and death. I can't imagine truly what it must be like. When I think about them, I think about the notion of burnout. And for these folks, it's not a notion. It's their everyday reality. I think myself, I had this idea about burnout that it's this feeling of, your gas gauge is at empty. There's nothing left to give. You know how sometimes when you're driving in a car and your gas gauge is on empty, I hope most people don't have this experience, and I try not to, but sometimes it happens where it's already on empty and you think, how many more gallons does it have when it says it's empty? Because you're trying to push your luck and you're trying to figure out in your mind, where's the nearest gas station? And, but it already says empty, right? So it's that idea of burnout, that you're really scraping the bottom of the barrel. You're really digging deep, and it's already telling you that there's nothing left, but you have to somehow dig deeper. So there's that one way of thinking about burnout, which I think is valid, of course. And we hear a lot these days about self-care as the response to a framing of burnout, as I just said. But I think that as I'm understanding it, there's another perspective on burnout, which frames it as the suppression of emotion. And I remember when I first heard that, I wasn't sure about it. What does that mean exactly? And I myself have experienced situations where I experienced death of a loved one, for example, when my father died. At that time, I was in a demanding leadership position, and I had to come home from burying him or his funeral and all of the arrangements of that. And it was the end of the fiscal year. And if you're a executive director of a nonprofit, you'll know what that means, right? There's a lot to do at the end of the year. So I came home and I just felt like I can't feel my emotions right now. I need to put on the blinders, so to speak. I need to put my head down and I need to keep working because people are counting on me. The lights have to stay on. People got to get paid, so to speak. And I just put my head down and I just kept working. And to be honest with you, I didn't look up again for 2 years until I took a sabbatical. And it's easy, right, to kind of get into that mode. It's easy to tell yourself a story about that because it's legitimate on one level, right? People are counting on you, not only if you're a leader, but if you're a parent or you're a caregiver or any other way that people are relying on you. So there's this myth in our culture that I bought into. I really believed it. And sometimes I find myself still believing it, catch myself believing it, even though I know now that it's not true, that I don't have time to feel my feelings. I can't. If I do, I am going to fall apart and not be of any use to anyone. And that also, I think, comes a bit from my upbringing as being a first-generation immigrant, right? Where you don't talk about your feelings. If there's a challenge, you work harder. So it's not just immigrants, but I think it's widespread in our culture. So this notion that burnout might be not just the gas gauge on empty, but its suppression of emotion was something that really captured my attention and made me contemplate, what does that mean? And in my own experience, I mentioned that I didn't look up after my dad passed away for probably 2 years until I was on sabbatical. And I was doing a lot of hiking. I live in the Pacific Northwest, and I was doing a lot of hiking. And all of a sudden I was in the wilderness a lot, in this beautiful wilderness here. And all of a sudden my senses started opening up again. And I would come home from being out in the wilderness back to my home and realize, oh my gosh, I've turned down the sound and I've turned down the color on so much of my life. I hadn't even noticed the beauty that was right immediately in front of me. That was a really important lesson for me. So what does this have to do with emotional rescue and in the ER method? Is that one of the big aha moments for me in engaging with this method is this possibility that instead of suppressing our emotions, avoiding them or turning them away, that we can actually turn towards them with a sense of friendliness and curiosity. And that at their very core is an energy that is not good or bad per se, but that is a powerful source of creativity and inspiration and energy. So ironically, the very thing that we think we should be avoiding because we think that if we feel our feelings, we are going to fall apart and not be productive and not show up for the people in our lives or whatever story we tell ourselves, is that story is actually the very source of the burnout, because all the energy that you put into suppressing your emotions, to use kind of like a technological metaphor, it's like all those apps running in the background of your phone that you don't even know that are running down your battery, and you get to the end of the day and why am I so exhausted? Why is the battery so low? Is because it's running in the background. You're actually spending a ton of energy suppressing that emotion. The alternative is if you learn some methods, such as emotional rescue method, where you can approach these emotions with curiosity, then you'll have the possibility of seeing the electric current at the core of these emotions. That's neither good or bad. That some say is fundamentally positive, actually. To me, it's this untapped source of sustainable energy for the work that we want to do in the world, whatever that is for you. We can use the energy of our emotions to channel to more constructive ways of building a better world for ourselves. Instead of running ourselves into the ground, suppressing our emotions, what if this was available to us to be more present to our patients, our clients, our families, etc. Now, you don't have to believe me about this. This is all about finding out for oneself, if that's the case. But when I think about our frontline medical workers and what they're facing these days, it may seem impossible and totally unrealistic. Yeah, right, Diane, sure. I'm going to have time when I'm a nurse in a ward that's full. I have time to feel my feelings. I don't think so, right? I wouldn't blame you if that's what you thought, right? But I want to open up the possibility for those folks that that way in the long run is actually a deeper source of burnout. And, we need you. We need you to keep doing this work. We thank you for continuing to do this work, but we need you. And I know so many people who are dropping out of these types of professions because it's not sustainable for them. So what are we to do if we lose all of you? So I am really excited about the possibility of working with folks in these professions to see whether or not what I'm saying is true in that case, and how we can apply this with a realistic approach, not pretending that we can, set aside time in the middle of a busy shift to do it, but to find ways of incorporating even small moments throughout the course of a busy shift, or, into the culture of our medical institutions, so that we can be of better support to these people who are giving their all for all of us. I'm really excited about that possibility, and I hope that we can continue to collaborate with people in the profession to give these tools and to get these out into the world to those folks who need it. There've been a lot of studies as well that have looked at what happens when caregivers, medical caregivers or other caregivers, when they are caring for themselves and caring for their emotions. Then again, this idea of co-regulation as mammals. If a caregiver is grounded and spacious and able to work with their emotions, what effect does that have on the quality of care that we're able to give to people? And I know that medical professionals, there's so many medical professionals out there who care very deeply about giving the highest quality care to everyone who comes into contact with them. And it doesn't have to be in hour-long spurts. It's in the small moments when you're with a patient that you can make a difference in their emotional well-being. There's this idea of emotional contagion, where we can catch each other's moods. We can catch each other's mind states or states of presence or distraction. And I think that for our medical professionals, they might have those small moments where they can change the trajectory of how someone, the direct patient as well as the patient's family, how they might be feeling. So that's what I think about when I think about our medical frontline workers and how we can better support their emotional resilience.